Good evening, friends, and welcome to Sleepy Time Tales, a sleep podcast aimed at helping you to get a restful night. Do you find your mind plagued with the stresses of modern life, especially when the lights are out and you're trying to get a restful night? Do you find your mind spinning and churning? Follow my voice down the path towards a restful night. Listen to me tell a story that will keep your mind from wandering to your daytime problems, the ones that you can't solve right now and which will probably be easier to solve with a solid night's rest. Listen to my voice and allow yourself to drift, following the twists and turns, but slowly letting go and drifting into the deep night, the restful sleep. Before we go any further tonight, I need to take care of some business. It's the sort of thing that usually happens at the end of most podcasts, but since I'm hoping you're asleep by the time we get that far, I need to mention the stuff right now. Firstly, you can find this podcast, all the episodes, as well as blog posts, musings, and sometimes production notes on our website, sleepytimetales.net. Comments, questions, suggestions can all be emailed to contact@sleepytimetales.net. You can find links to all of our relevant social media on the website, but you can go straight from here to our Twitter, which is @sleepytimetales, and Facebook, which is @sleepytimetales podcast. I have been getting some rather nice feedback, not a lot, but it's starting to come in, and I appreciate everything that I hear from people. It's nice to know that people are being helped. This podcast is definitely not for everybody, so if you're somebody that I reach, let me know. It feels good to know that we're helping out. It's also nice to see, looking through some of my stats, that I've got a few subscribers, which, while listeners is nice, people who actually subscribe, who want to hear what you have to say. I just want to give a shout out to you folks. You are extra special. So thank you for the support, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for your subscriptions already. They're all much appreciated. We also have a channel on YouTube where I will be putting up simple visualized enhanced versions of the episodes for your enjoyment. Some people like to leave the YouTube playing in the background, and flashing lights may help a little bit. You can search for Sleepy Time Tales podcast there, or follow the link in the show notes. Also in the show notes on the website is a link to the podcast newsletter. If you're interested in hearing up-to-date info and news, and I'm not too sure what else, maybe specials or products that I think may help people get a restful night, subscribe, and I'll promise not to spam you. I'll only send stuff out that I think is genuinely interesting. Now, if you're enjoying the show and or finding it useful, if it's helping you a couple of nights a week, or if you're like me and you leave your sleep aid podcast running in the background so the droning voices can sing you to sleep, it would be much appreciated if you could give me a little bit of support to help some of the costs. I was going to hold off a few months on starting a Patreon because I wanted to have a body of work to justify it first. But Patreon recently announced some changes that will make it more expensive and less useful for new creators starting campaigns after May 2019. So I figured I'd just hold my nose and jump in and get started. So if you're interested, it's there. If it ever reaches a stage where there's enough for it to be compelling, it's there for you whenever you're ready, but no pressure. But the show is free, so what reason could you have to actually pay me for it? There are a couple of reasons. Firstly, maybe you'd just like to. It's a service I provide mainly to help people, and if you think that it's something you'd like to support and you're finding it useful, that may be reason enough for you. But if you'd like to get a bit of a sweetener, I do have some rewards levels available on the Patreon. There are 3 at the moment. I'm keeping things quite simple. If you can afford $1 a month, I will genuinely appreciate that. I live in a country where $1 is actually a usable amount of money. So if you want to back me at $1 a month, I will, with your permission, list your name or alias on a thank you page on the Sleepy Time Tales website, sleepytimetales.net. Now, while a single $1 is genuinely a usable amount of money, add 4 more to make 5, and we have a very useful amount of money. To thank you for reaching that deeply, I'll provide you with an RSS feed of episodes that don't have this whole down to business section in it, where I'm rattling a can asking you for money. Also, while I don't have any advertising on the show, if that ever changes, any $5 and up patrons will receive ad-free episodes in their custom feed. If you really love what I do and can kick $10 a month in my direction, you will really get one extra episode every month. I'll do a full movie recap review that will be chosen in a poll by users. If I can come up with anything else that is worthwhile for higher level patrons, I will, but right now $10 is the cap. You can find the Patreon at patreon.com/sleepytimetales or patreon.sleepytimetales.net. If a monthly commitment is a bit too much for you, which is also understandable, I do have a tip jar up on my website where you can throw a bit of spare change my way whenever you're so inclined. And again, I'll repeat myself, literally a single dollar is useful. If that is what you can afford and you feel it isn't going to help, be assured it will, and it will be appreciated. Another way you can help without costing yourself anything extra is checking out the affiliate links on many episodes and on the website. I link to items that are related to the theme of an episode in the show description, and the website has links to sleep aid podcasts, appliances, and even some very nice looking beds. So take a look if you're on the market. Another way you can help without actually costing yourself any money is rate and review the podcast on whatever your service of choice is. The show can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify. I was using SoundCloud, but I ran out of space on the free service, so I think I'm going to cut that until I can cover a subscription on that. But of course, if you found it, you already know where to find it. A 5-star review will get the show in front of more people, and the more people who find it, the more people have a chance of helping find a good night's sleep. Also, any interesting or funny reviews that I get, I will read out at the end of an episode. So, and also, if this show helps you find a good night's sleep, it may help others. So, other than reviews, also please share the show on your social media or to any friends or family you think it may help. Even if it doesn't help you, it may help somebody else, because everyone who suffers sleepless nights is usually open to options. Even if it doesn't necessarily work for one person, it may work for someone else. The music in this episode and all episodes thus far is Un Désert Bakumiku. Their music is available on the Free Music Archive. I've linked their website and their Patreon in the show notes, as they have some very cool stuff released under various different names that I definitely would recommend checking out, especially if you need music for media of your own. That's enough of business. Now back to the fun part. So what exactly is Sleepy Time Tales? What is a sleep aid podcast? To answer your question, let me start with a common problem. Do you find yourself lying awake at night, mind spinning and emotions in turmoil with the anxieties of 21st century life? Do you wake up in the middle of the night and find yourself not quite able to doze back off at 3 a.m.? I'm here to help. My name is Dave, and I'm your narrator, here to talk you into a restful night. I'm someone who has struggled to sleep ever since I was a baby. My parents had sleepless nights with me for many years, and even once I got old enough not to bother them, I struggled to sleep a lot. I discovered far too late in life that droning male voices have a tendency to put me into a deep sleep. I learned this when I was listening to podcasts at bedtime, and sometimes even during the day when I was at home because I was doing shift work. Eventually I found out that sleep podcasts are a thing. There are many of them that read out old stories, and there are some for adults and many for children. I tried one out that was quite special though. It had a format specifically designed for the purpose of distracting the restless mind. It worked very well for me, but when I recommended it to others, they didn't like the narrator's voice. There wasn't anything else quite like it that I could find, so I wondered if I could make an alternative with my own droning voice. And here it is. This intro will go on for a few minutes as I explain the idea behind the podcast and why I think that listening to me will help you. There's a couple of reasons that I have the same intro every episode. Firstly, it's for new listeners who come along who don't quite know what it's for. And for repeat listeners, it's intended to sort of help you get into that sort of state, to prepare for the story. When I listen to sleep aid podcasts, I'm usually asleep by the end of the intro anyway. so that might even work for you. Once I'm through the intro, the story will begin. Before the story starts, try to wind yourself down, grab yourself a glass of water, turn out the lights, and prepare yourself for the experience of sleeping as we prepare to go on a journey to a restful night's sleep. Or I'm actually thinking maybe I need to rethink the whole journey metaphor. It's a little bit too active. What I think we're actually building is, well, what we're doing is building a space for you, a mental nest, a safe space for you to settle into. The idea is that you listen to me closely as I tell you tonight's story, that you listen so that you can stop the spinning mind that prevents you, like me, many nights from having a restful night's sleep. The story I will tell is going to be kind of boring and pointless, and the plan is that it engages your attention just enough to stop your mind from spinning into overdrive, as very frequently happens to us insomniacs at bedtime. Tonight we continue with my recap of the TV series Twin Peaks, which is something I've wanted to watch for many years, and I figured it might be an opportunity to make myself watch it to do a recap for the purposes of the podcast. The show is starting to get really weird now, so even my usual nonsense is going to be even more nonsensical than normal. But it's very important that as I tell you about the events of Twin Peaks, it's important that you don't force it. Don't allow the process to happen naturally, the urge to sleep. Just keep a light mental grip on the thread of my voice and allow the natural need to sleep to slowly wind you down. I'm hoping that you're asleep before I get to the end of the episode, but don't feel pressurized. It may not work on the first night. Maybe it will take a few nights for you to get used to listening to my voice. Maybe my accent is strange to you. Maybe one episode just isn't long enough. It's important, though, that you try to relax. If you're new to the show and prone to late nights lying staring at the ceiling, it may take a while, or even a few days for this to work for you. So listen to the sound of my voice as I tell you a tale. Queue up a few episodes or just run through the backlog. What I do with sleep podcasts is I just let them stream all night. I lie down in the dark with my earbuds in and let them run. Sometimes when I wake up at 3 a.m, the stream is still running and I let the voices waft me back to sleep. Sometimes I wake up 30 minutes before my alarm goes. Usually I carry on listening, and sometimes it even knocks me right back out. That 30 minutes is sometimes the most restful part of my night. There's something about allowing yourself to relax completely right before the alarm that just satisfies on a very deep level. So you have the basic idea. You relax and you lie in the dark, and while you do that, I tell you a story. So relax, dear listener, my nighttime friend who has elected to lie in the dark listening to my voice. I've been doing this for a few weeks now, and it still seems a little bit strange to me that you would invite me, a stranger from somewhere in the world, to speak to you in your sleep. But people have been, and I appreciate the fact that I am helping some of you, and I'm hoping to help a lot more. One thing I will promise is that you'll always be safe with me. I'm here to help you to relax, to improve your life in a small way, or not a small way. People don't sleep very well these days, and it makes life harder. So I'm here to do my small part to help you in a big way, to help you to face tomorrow and the day after, well rested and better able to cope and process. I'm going to tell mostly feel-good stories and a few mysteries. Tonight is Twin Peaks, which is not a feel-good story, but I'm going to focus on the weird, confusing stuff rather than the sad and depressing stuff. I'm also never going to focus on the bad parts of modern life. I'll only share stories that relax or make your life better, even in small ways, and it's the stresses of modern life that are keeping you awake. I believe very strongly in the benefits of kindness. I want to be kind to you. I want to share kindness with you. I want you to be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up or rebuke yourself over not sleeping. Don't get tense if you just can't get yourself over the edge of sleep, even with me here in your ears trying to help. Frustration is one of the great enemies of a good night's sleep. The intention with this podcast is to short-circuit that frustration, to distract the feeling we get when we blame ourselves for not being able to let go and drift into the dark. So take a breath, Forgive the fact that you can't sleep and let my voice wash over you and under you. Take another breath. Imagine the warm darkness rising up, inviting you to sleep into a better life starting tomorrow. And if you can't let go, forgive yourself and try again tomorrow. If you've had a life of insomnia, sleep is something like an enemy. But it is not your enemy. It's a natural process that we've been pulled away from by stress and life and supposed progress that shines bright light in our eyes at all hours. I'm here to work with you, to create a safe space, a cocoon in which you can curl up and allow nature to take its course. So if you're still with me, thank you for staying. If you're already asleep, we'll chat again soon. And of course you aren't hearing me except maybe in your dream. So let me tell you that story now. Twin Peaks, Zen, or the skill to catch a killer. The show opens with the Horn family, Ben, the owner of the hotel, and his daughter Audrey and his wife and son Johnny, the young man we know as having a developmental issues, who has a fondness for American native war bonnets, all sitting around the dinner table, eating in silence. Nothing much is going on, there's no conversation at all, and we just have the clink of cutlery. It's quite rare in a TV show to have silence that seems to stretch out forever because every second needs to be accounted for. So when the scene goes on for, I didn't time it, but probably about 2 minutes, it feels like it's taking forever. A man bursts in, dressed kind of flashy style with sunglasses, talking to someone out in the passageway in the corridor of the hotel, and a whole bunch of bellhops come in carrying his bags. They dig in his bags for some baguettes, which is seems like a bit of a strange thing. Don't know where he's come from, but yeah, he digs out some baguettes out of his baggage. Very large French loaves, don't seem to have much on them. He tells Ben and the family that these are the best things he's eaten. Baguettes he ate for a day, wherever he was, with brie and butter, which to be honest doesn't sound all that exciting. He refers to himself as Uncle Jerry. Audrey seems happy to see him. Ben's wife, whose name I don't know, does not seem to be happy to see him. Jerry goes on for a bit about the sandwiches, gives one to Ben, who starts piling into it. Again, these are huge sandwiches, probably the length of a human arm, or forearm at the very least. Very awkwardly chews on it, gets surprisingly excited about the meal, and takes his leave of the table. He stands up, looks at his family, says, "Always a pleasure," and walks out of the room. Calls Jerry out to go with him. Ben tells Jerry about the murder of Laura Palmer and that the Norwegians left. Jerry is initially very upset, particularly over the Norwegians leaving, and then was like, "Oh, wait, Leland's daughter?" Ben says yes, and Jerry's like, "Well, now I'm depressed." Ben says he's got just the thing to help Jerry's depression. There's a new girl at One-Eyed Jack's who he has a 50-50 chance at being the first to be with. We don't know yet what One-Eyed Jack's is, but it sounds dirty. They make a comment about all work and no play make Ben and Jerry dull boys. Gotta wonder how deliberate this is. Why would you name two characters after an ice cream brand? I mean, I doubt it's accidental. It's 20 odd years after Ben and Jerry was founded. I actually researched this because I was curious. Just seems quite strange. They head off for One-Eyed Jack's because Jerry is quite excited about the odds, the 50-50 odds of being the first person with the new girl. Then we have James. He's still at Donna's house after going there for dinner in the previous episode. The doc reminds Donna that there's church in the morning if she's going to be going, that they're going to be there at 9:30. We cut then to Ben and Jerry arriving on a very fancy looking boat at One-Eyed Jack's. We see it's on a lakeside or riverside or something. There's a dock It seems to be some kind of bordello and casino, because Jerry makes a reference to going to the casino, and Ben says he didn't come to lose his shirt, just to take it off. They go in, grab a couple of drinks. Jerry makes a big deal about ordering one double whiskey and then a double whiskey on the rocks for his brother. And while they're standing there, a whole parade of girls dressed in what looks like a sort of playing card theme come out. They're all in red and black and white. They look like some kind of dirty variation on Alice in Wonderland or something. A whole bunch of girls come out, and Madam comes out. I think her name is Lucky. I think Ben called her that, or something like that. She comes out wearing all in black. Ben goes on with some kind of quote. I think it's from Shakespeare. He's a pompous but who has a fancy turn of phrase. Jerry just interrupts because he just wants to see the new girl. The Madam calls the new girl out. Jerry flips a coin, and unfortunately Ben wins it. So he gets up onto the stage, while Jerry has a bit of a dropped lip. The new girl looks quite nervous, but she leads Ben out to the back area, and Jerry goes to take a seat at the bar, and the Madam's consoling him at not getting the new girl. She says they're going to take good care of him. We go back again to James and Donna at Donna's house. They're talking about their feelings. James says that he was feeling things would have turned out this way. Seems like he and Laura were probably on the rocks at the time she disappeared, and before she met her fate. Which is quite sad, but sometimes these things happen at the worst of times. James and Donna start getting hot and heavy on the couch. This girl's up to real mischief. I think she needs church, to be honest. I don't like to judge, but her friend's just dead, and here she is making out with her boyfriend. And the boyfriend also needs church, to be quite honest. I'm not a religious person, but these guys are not behaving appropriately. I'd like, seriously, just at least take a couple of days. We go back to the hotel, where Dale walks into his room. He blows a wooden whistle, and the phone rings immediately. The native deputy, who in the previous episode we saw interviewing Renek Pulaski's parents at the hospital, is on the line. He mentions that he saw the one-armed man on the phone with Dale. He mentions the one-armed man, or at least we pick this up from Dale's side of the conversation. We don't hear anything that Deputy Hawk says. While Dale is on the phone, a note slides under the door. The note just says, Jack with one eye. I guess it's supposed to be something of a riddle, which is not very mystifying to the viewer, because we've just seen one-eyed Jacks literally 2 minutes previously, but Dale doesn't know the town, so maybe this seems a little bit strange to him. Then we cut to a scene in the dark woods. Bobby and Mark are driving in the forest in the dark. They get out, they get some flashlights, and they go through looking in a hollow under a tree, where they find a football. It's the same football that Leo was cutting open in the previous episode. There is a tiny little bag of white powder in it. Knowing what we know now, it's probably cocaine that Laura Palmer was getting involved with, and the money that she had in her safe deposit box was supposed to pay for it. Leo pops out of the dark, gives the boys a fright, says, "Come guys, this is supposed to be cash on delivery." Cash on delivery. So where's the money? Bobby spots someone else hard lurking in the woods, and he asks what's up, but Leo doesn't even mention it. They talk about Laura. Bobby and Mark tell Leo that Laura had the rest of the money, and they were promised to come up with it somehow. Leo tells them that Laura was a wild girl, and he points his shotgun at Mark. Leo is upset, besides the money situation, because he mentions that his wife has been giving it away. When he mentions this, Bobby looks quite nervous, because of course Leo's wife has been giving it away to Bobby, which at this point we don't think Leo knows. Leo seems like a dangerous person, and it's going to go badly for Bobby if he does find out what's going on. So after a little bit of intimidating the guys, Leo tells Bobby and Mike to go up for a pass. Bobby and Mike run through the dark woods in a panic. They're probably concerned about being shot in the back, which, given how crazy Leo seems to be, seems like a possibility. As they get to the car, the football lands on the bonnet of the car, on the hood of the car for my American listeners, which is most of you. And it gives them a big fright. They jump in the car and they drive off without retrieving the football off the car. We cut to Ed the mechanic's house, where Ed is trying to get through the door. His hands are covered in black grease and he's trying to get through the cream and white coloured house without making a mess, which is a little bit challenging for him. There's a lot of grease and he's trying not to touch anything, and he steps on the drape runners, which Nadine has laid out with cotton balls, and they're basically made of dowel sticks covered with cotton balls, just sitting in the middle of the floor. He steps on them while she's on the rowing machine. She gets very upset. He yells at him a little bit. She yells quite a lot. And after he walks out, she pushes so hard on the arms of the rowing machine, she actually bends the arms. And this woman gets more and more scary every time we see her. There's also, I noticed on the second time I watched this, there's a lot of gym equipment lying around the sitting room of the house. So she seems to basically just play with drapes and exercise. We cut to the morning. In the woods, Lucy is helping Dale measure out some distance. We've got a table set up with Lucy's display of doubled up, piled up donuts, which looks delicious. And Dale is writing a list of names on a blackboard. We go to Shirley at home. That's the waitress, Leo's wife, if those don't remember. She's looking a little bit worse for wear after the previous night with Leo. There's a knock on the door. She goes to answer it, and it is Bobby. Shirley, despite probably knowing better, opens the door for Bobby because she's in a rough state thanks to Leo's jealousy. Bobby comes in and sees bruises on her face. Shirley is trying to get Bobby to leave because if Leo finds out what's going on, he will kill both of them. Bobby says he will kill Leo if he hurts Shirley anymore. I think Bobby's a dangerous person, but I would put my money on Leo personally. We'll see. We go again to Norma at the diner. Ed comes in for some coffee. He tells Norma that he's in the doghouse for stepping on the drape runners. Norma mentions that she bumped into Nadine at the hardware store, and she was going on about the drape runners. I think they're just as mystified as I am why Nadine is so into drapes and runners. We go back to the woods again, where Andy, the crying deputy, is collecting a bucket of rocks, and Lucy pours some coffee. Andy gives the bucket of rocks to Dale, while Dale takes a sip of the coffee and spits it out. I think he enjoys it because he said it was a good cup of coffee, but very hot. So it was just like, sometimes you take a sip of coffee and it's too hot. And I guess if you do that when you're in the woods, you can just spit it out, where at home maybe you can't. He sits all the deputies and Lucy down and explains and starts with a lesson on Tibet. He flips the blackboard around where there's a map of China. He points out Tibet, mentions the history of China, of Tibet being invaded by China in the 1950s, if it was, I think. And mentions the Dalai Lama having had to flee to India and living in exile. Dale says he had a dream about Tibet one time. Man, when you can't read your own writing, this is quite bad. Dale had a dream which gave him a great deal of sympathy for the plight of the people of Tibet, and at the same time he developed a kind of intuition which helps him to investigate and deduct things and learn things that he may otherwise not have been able to. He mentions the note from Laura's diary, nervous about meeting Jay. The list of names on the blackboard that Dale had written on were all people's with J as either their first name or their surname. He gets Harry to read the names out, mention their relationship with Laura, while Deputy Hawk holds the bucket of rocks, and Dale throws the rocks at the bottle, which was very carefully measured out by Lucy earlier. If he hits the bottle, they need to make a check mark next to the name. They start out with Dr. Jacoby, who I can't remember if we found out, but I think we did at the previous episode that he was Laura's psychiatrist, which her parents didn't even know he was seeing. He throws the rock and hits the bottle, but it doesn't break. Actually, I don't think Jacoby was the first one. We ran through a few people and it was complete misses, nothing particularly interesting. But Jacoby was the first one where it hit. When they got to Shelley Johnson, the rock actually bounces, hits a garbage can, and bounces and hits Deputy Andy in the head. Harry seems a little bit doubtful about this whole process. I mean, who could blame him? This is frankly not rational. But Dale says this definitely will work. It's worked for him in the past. They get to the One-Eyed Jack on the list, and Harry tells Dale, no, One-Eyed Jack is not a person, because they thought for a second that maybe it was Nadine, because she has one eye. One-Eyed Jack is a house of ill repute and casino on the Canadian side of the border. So they take One-Eyed Jack off the list. Then when they get to Leo Johnson, Dale throws the rock, hits the bottle, and it smashes. We cut to rather beautiful scenery again. We're outside the diner. We still have a really nice view of the mountainside. The diner, Donna and her family are sitting having lunch after church when Audrey Horn walks in. The doc mentions that Audrey was at church. He saw her there earlier, but Donna hadn't seen her. Audrey goes and puts some music on the jukebox. She seems to be a fan of the sort of slightly jazzy, slow music, very similar to what she was playing in a previous episode at the hotel. Audrey manages to catch Donna's eye, so Donna goes over to say hello. We found out that Audrey didn't particularly like Laura, but she did appreciate that she helped Johnny with his studying. So she still appreciated that. She liked what Laura did, despite the fact she personally didn't like her very much. Audrey seems to have a bit of a crush on Agent Cooper because she's drinking some black coffee. She mentions how much Agent Cooper loves his coffee. And she asks if Laura ever spoke about Audrey's father to Donna. Donna is a little bit confused about this. She doesn't know why Audrey's father, Ben, would come up in conversation. And Audrey says that Ben used to sing to Laura. So there seems to be some creepy stuff going on there as well. Audrey goes to dance in the middle of the diner, just swaying to the jazzy, trippy music with her eyes closed. While Donna and her family all sort of sit there and look at each other very confused. It's slightly odd behavior. We go back to the police station where Harry and Dale are going through some evidence. Harry has a cloth that they found with some blood on it. It looks like quite a major clue, and then we cut to the entrance where Albert and his team arrive. Albert comes in looking like a typical FBI agent with a couple of assistants. Albert goes to Lucy, who we see is busy reading a book about Tibet, so she seems to be trying to learn a little bit more about this strange FBI agent, Dale Cooper. Albert is there with his crack forensic team, which Dale was talking about. Dale does warn Harry that Albert lacks certain social niceties. Harry says he will be able to deal with that, and Dale, in quite a surprising and also kind of cute gesture, pinches Harry's nose. They seem to be getting close quite quickly, and they seem to be fast friends after what's probably 2 days of time spent working together. Albert is not impressed with the police station in general, or with the autopsy coroner's report that Harry gives to him, or that Dale gives to him rather. Well, Harry was warned that Albert lacks social niceties, and the warning was not in vain, because Albert is extremely rude. Harry pulls him aside and says to him, generally speaking, if people come into his precincts and are so actively unpleasant, they'll be looking for their teeth. Albert calms down a little bit and winds his neck in and goes off to get to work. We then get to Ed getting home, where Nadine yells from another room. She comes yelling and running through, but instead of attacking him, which seems to be what he expects, she runs and hugs him. Turns out the grease that he drops on the runners when he steps on them lubricated the cotton balls, and the curtains are now completely silent. Nadine's very excited. She thinks these silent curtain runners are going to make them very rich. I think I said before, I'm not too sure about the longevity of curtain runners lined with cotton balls. Even if the idea does work initially, those are probably not going to last more than a few uses. But anyway, it's nice to be excited about things, and good for her. We go now to Catherine and Pete at their house. Pete is in Catherine's room, talking to her, just general stuff about her hostility to Josie. He sneaks a key out of a jar and gives it to Josie, who takes it off. Catherine kicks Pete out of her room after he made a rude comment to her about the FBI wanting to speak to her when she's back from her world tour. Josie opens a hidden wall safe and takes out some files, which he refers to as the books. So obviously there's some accounting ledgers there that were being kept secret for some reason. Generally speaking, a good idea to keep your books safe and sound and secure, but not really from the owner of the company. We cut to the Palmer household, where Leland puts on a record with the bouncy, noisy jazz. I'm not familiar with the work in particular. He picks up, he's holding in tears, and he picks up a framed photo of Laura looking very innocent and beautiful. The music's really loud. You can just hear the phone ringing in the background. He starts spinning around, holding the picture and staring at it, and he starts screaming. His wife comes in, and he's saying he has to dance, he has to dance. His wife tries to stop him, but he trips and falls, lands on the frame, and breaks the glass in the frame, and he cuts himself. Cuts himself, starts bleeding. He gets blood on the photo, and I can never remember the wife's name, Sarah, I think, or Susan. She starts screaming, "What is going on in this house?" She goes, switches off the music, and screams the same thing again. Leland's still pawing at the photo of Laura and has got blood all over it. We go now to Dale Cooper, who has fallen asleep in his bedroom in the hotel. He's sleeping restlessly though, and the picture fades to him in a room in a dream. The room is completely in red curtains, red carpets. There is a woman who looks exactly like Laura Palmer, and a small man seems to have some kind of dwarfism. Then we have a bearded man who's making a sort of quote, sounds like he's declaiming something, mentions "Fire Walk With Me," which was, remember, a clue found at the site of Laura and Renette Pulaski's deduction. He mentions a devilish one making a tattoo on his left shoulder. He says his name is Mike, and his friend, the devilish one, is Bob. They don't seem to be Mike and Bobby, although this is quite a major coincidence. Strange to have characters with similar or the same names, so maybe there's some kind of connection there, I really don't know. We see the mound of dirt that the half heart was found in the burnt out train had been an altar surrounded with candles. Dale sees the Laura's doppelganger and the other man, who says, "Let's rock." The speech in the dream is quite actually done in like sort of a very interesting format. It looks like you can understand, but they're showing it with subtitles, but it sounds like it's backwards. I think what they actually must have done was they must have done the lines phonetically backwards, and then reversed the formal video to give them like this really weird, strange delivery. It's quite effective, very dreamlike. You can still understand exactly what's going on. Very smart play, to be honest. The man refers to the woman who looks exactly like Laura as my cousin. Don't you think she looks like Laura Palmer? Dale thinks that she actually is Laura Palmer. The man says that she's filled with secrets. They mention where they come from. There's a lot of music and birdsong all the time. There's always music in the air. So some jazzy music starts. The man gets up and starts dancing. The woman, who we now believe is not Laura, maybe, goes over and kisses Cooper very slowly and whispers to him his ear. Cooper wakes up. He goes to the phone, he picks up the phone, and he calls Sheriff Harry S. Truman. He says, "We need to meet up for breakfast, because I know who killed Laura Palmer." He waits for a second, he says, "No, it can wait till morning." And that's the end of the episode. While doing a little bit of research for this episode, I came across some interesting trivia about Twin Peaks. It's a show that's got a almost mythology built up around it over the decades since it showed. So there was, so I figured I'd address a couple of interesting things that I learned. One thing I always assumed was that Sheriff Harry S. Truman was named for the Harry S. Truman, the American president. Turns out this is not the case. Both D.B. Cooper and Harry Truman are named after enduring figures in sort of Washington state law. Dale Cooper is named after D.B. Cooper, the hijacker who parachuted out of a plane with a whole bunch of cash and disappeared completely. Dale's middle name is even Bartholomew, so it's a straight sort of copy. Harry Truman is named after a man who refused to leave his lodge during the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens. Bit of an interesting fact, I guess. So I guess there's a local legend. I mentioned about the actors saying the lines backwards in the Red Room. Well, initially, when I watched it, I thought myself that this was probably what they did. Turned out to be very much the case. There's even videos on YouTube of exactly what was done and how they made it work. I'm sure as we go along I'll share some more trivia with you, but I thought those few interesting facts would be something interesting for anyone who's stayed awake this late into the episode. Thanks for joining me in this episode of the Sleepy Time Tales podcast, the sleep aid podcast designed around a bedtime story to help you to get a restful night. New episodes will be released every Sunday night to give you something fresh to help you get rest in a new week. But make sure to subscribe in whatever service you use so that you get new episodes and maybe the odd bonus whenever they come out. A reminder that the music for tonight is Un Désert by Kumiku. Check out their work on their website and their Patreon, which you will find linked in the show notes. Good night and sweet dreams.